Well, here we are again at the MTP Software Studios in Natick, Massachusetts, the leader in sports CRM in North America. My name is Jeffrey Davis, and that means this is Radio Entrepreneurs. We're always featuring the stories of entrepreneurship, and our next guest, returning guest, but going to come in a different coat this time. Last time here is Bob Glazer, founder and CEO of Acceleration Partners, still that, but today, author of EleVate. Nice-looking book, at least from the outside.
Yeah, perception's important.
Yeah, well, you got to put the package on. So welcome back, and tell us about EleVate.
Sure. EleVate started out of an email that I began to my team about 4 years ago eventually called Friday Forward. I started just writing a note every Friday, sharing some sort of story or something inspirational or motivational. I didn't really think anyone was reading them. About 5 or 6 weeks later, started to get emails back. Hey, I really like this. I sent it to my husband or his company or my brother every week. And I was at a conference and I was telling a bunch of other CEOs that, hey, writing this note to the team and had a good outcome. So like good entrepreneurs, they said, all right, well, send us yours and we'll take a look at it. And one of them said, great, I'll write my own. The other three said, oh, forward it to my company every week. And the feedback was good. So I decided to open it up and put a few more people on it. And 4 years later, there's now 100,000 people in 60 countries that have signed up. Which led me to write a compilation book around these stories, which I then completely rewrote into kind of why did these stories work, and how, our company had basically tripled or quadrupled over that time, and sort of the framework was the same in terms of helping to elevate people and build their capacity. So the book is about these 4 elements of building capacity in yourself and using it as a leadership strategy, and they are spiritual capacity, intellectual, emotional, and physical.
So how did you sort of develop those 4 principles on your own? Was it
I went to a bunch of agents and I said I wrote this compilation. I took all these stories and they said, yeah, no one buys compilations. So like, what's the story? And so I looked at all these high achievers that I had been around and met and what they were doing, things that I had done, how we were developing leaders at the company, and it sort of all and what the Friday Forwards were about thematically and why they were resonating with people. And it sort of came back to these themes, and I played with them for like 6 or 9 months, and I rewrote the book like twice. So first it was the 8 steps, and then eventually I realized there were these 4 things that I was seeing consistently.
So can you give us a hint for our listeners that, everybody I talk to reads management books. It's almost everyone I deal with. So could you give us a sense of sort of a part of one of the stories so that they get a sense of tease them?
Yeah, so and it goes through, the book's designed to go through each of those sections. One of the sections is about intellectual capacity. So how do we learn? How do we increase our operating system? How do we get better? Focus and discipline. There is a story in there about Warren Buffett talking to his pilot. I don't know if you know the story about goal setting. And he asked the pilot, and this is sort of, we're not totally clear. This might be a wives' tale. It may be true, but it's still a good story. But he asked
why let the facts get in the way of a good story?
These days, particularly.
Yeah.
So he said to the pilot, what are the top 25 things you want to accomplish most in your life? And the guy wrote the list, Mike. And then he said, well, out of those 25, what are the top 5? And basically highlighted the top 5 and said, I'm going to go after the top 5, but I'll continue to work on these other ones. And Buffett said, those 20, you don't even look at them. Those become your do not do at all cost list until you get those 5 done, or it will actually just distract you from what you want. So
a focus.
Yeah, focusing on why we want something, I think, is the spiritual part. It's not religious. It's about what do you want, who are your core values, who are you? And then that really defines what you want to go accomplish and how you kind of hone in on that.
Right. So the logical question, Bob, is do you live by those 4 principles?
Generally, yes. Ironically, in
that's why we
up,
to nobody's perfect.
No one's perfect. And I talk about it like a ball with 4 quadrants, and I think they leak naturally. And we need to, if you want momentum, you need to keep building up each part. In the run up to promoting the book in the 6-week launch and book tour, I definitely violated most of the principles of physical capacity and sort of exhausting myself.
Right.
But that was a short-term period. But I felt the effects of that, and it definitely impacts other parts of your life, running on empty for a while.
Interesting. So you run your own business.
Yeah.
What's the big difference between running your own business and, let's say, being a published author? There's stuff that you had to learn?
Yeah, so it's actually a huge effort in intellectual capacity. So people, when I did the launch, people would say, well, okay, how did you know how to do this? So I'm like, look, I went and interviewed 20 authors, and I asked them, I took notes, circled all the themes, what worked, what didn't work. I always like to ask top and bottom questions. So what sort of exceeded your expectations, and who would you ask your money back for? And when you do that 10 times, and particularly people who are on the New York Times bestseller list and stuff, you start to get a clear picture of what works. So again, a lot of the premise in this is we understand physical capacity, right? I have this dumbbell and I can't pick it up, but if I lift it for 10 days, for 90 days, I'll be able to lift it like much faster and easier. This is true in the other aspects of our life. You can go learn something, practice it, get better at it. We tend to think, oh, I have that, or I know that, or I don't know that, or I have good relationships, or I had bad relationships. So, I mean, that was an example where I'm a marketing person, we're a marketing agency, but I didn't know how to launch a book. So I went and found 20 people who did, and, got all the information I could from them.
Good answer. So as you're writing the book, I assume you started to reflect on yourself a little bit. Did it affect how you were running your own company as you were writing it?
Yeah, so a big part of that was we've had a great run. We've grown about 10x in the last decade and won about 20 Best Places to Work awards, which were more important to us than just the top line growth. But I realized that what we had done was we were investing in people and helping them build their capacity holistically. Not about how do we make them better at work, how do we make them better at time management and prioritization and focus on health and all these things that made people better at work, because with that kind of growth, you need people to get better. So we were doing these things, but now actually a lot of our training, we do it under this framework. We use the vernacular. So, when we do an offsite, here's how we're focusing on spiritual capacity. We help our leaders figure out their own personal core values, because I don't think you can be a really good leader if you don't know what you actually value. You're just not going to be able to communicate that to the people that work for you.
Totally agree, 100%. But I was writing my book. In writing the book, we decided that we were going to create a questionnaire around the 6 leaders in my book, Mark Cohn and myself, and then I ended up using those questionnaires to do offsites with companies so that they could measure themselves against, let's say, a high-performing leader model. Yeah. So it's funny how that was not the intent to use it in that way, but I ended up using it that way. If someone's looking for the book, Bob, where would they find it?
You can find it at robertglazer.com along with my podcast, and it's robertglazer.com/EleVate. So it's easy to find when you're on there.
Nice looking book from the outside. I hope I get to read it. I hope you're leaving us a copy.
Yeah, that's yours.
It's EleVate, and I'm looking forward to reading it. And we should all as leaders be willing to learn and get better and continue to improve. I agree with you.
Yeah.
If you can't lift the weights today, you can lift them tomorrow.
Exactly.
That's the truth. Nice having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Continued success. Remind everybody this is Radio Entrepreneurs.